Welcome to the Dental School Guide podcast, your ultimate destination for all things dentistry. I'm Dr. Tanner Townsend, your guide through the complex world of dental education. Join us as we uncover the secrets of acing dental school admissions, navigating residency programs, and exploring career opportunities. Please share and enjoy. Real quick, just wanted to make all you pre-dental students out there aware of a resource. If you've ever been worried about getting into dental school or are wanting to get into that school of your dreams, then you definitely want to check out a program called Dental School Guide. In the program, we walk you through how to save money, time, and heartache when applying to dental school. There's so much fluff out there when it comes to resources for getting into school, and we are streamlining all of that. With our comprehensive digital course, expert mentorship, and personalized application review services, you'll have everything you need to stand out to admission committees. Take advantage of this amazing resource that will help you increase your chances of getting into dental school. You'll want to check out dentalschoolguide.com. Check it out. Welcome back to the Dental School Guide podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tanner Townsend, and we're here with Miriam Villa. Miriam, welcome to the podcast. We are super excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, Miriam is going to be a vast source of knowledge about Midwestern. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her story and a little bit more about Midwestern in particular. But Miriam, give us a little bit more information about you and your background.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So again, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. So as you know, I'm Miriam. I'm originally from Germany, moved to America about 6 years ago. Moved here, got my son diagnosed. I'm a special needs mom. I have an 8-year-old son on the autism spectrum. And yes, I originally moved here with the military. I was a military spouse. That's how I got here. And my son just got diagnosed once we got here, really. Signed
Wow.
up in undergrad, did my undergrad education here, and went from there. But I was a prior teacher, a behavioral therapist, and now I'm in dental school. I'm about to be in my second year at Midwestern.
Well, that is so cool. That is such a unique story. So, Miriam, I'm going to have you actually dive into your story a little bit more, if that's okay, because it's
Absolutely.
so kind of unique. It's a very unique path. So, what kind of drew you from behavioral therapy into dentistry?
Yes, I mean, it's been a long, long journey. And, when you meet those people in high school that tell you exactly, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, that was not me. I knew I liked people. People always call me, like, how do you say, social butterfly. I love people. So I knew I wanted to work with people. I wanted to help people. But dentistry was not even something that I thought of at all. I initially wanted to go into teaching. And that's what I initially did in Germany. I went to become a teacher and did that for a little bit. And really, how I found dentistry was I always like to say dentistry kind of found me in a way. I had my son, took a little bit of break of teaching, and there was an opportunity that came up at the military base in Germany, in Wiesbaden, which was really training military dependents to be dental assistants. Once I
Hmm.
did that, I started recognizing that, that the dentists, they were not just really fixing a tooth. That was my conception of a dentist, really. That, hey, you go to the dentist, they give you a shot, they fix something, and you go out your way, right? But that was far from the truth, really. I saw that as dentists, we are teachers, we're educators, we're therapists, we're social workers, we're engineers, artists. So there were so many components that just drew me to really going into dentistry. And then as an assistant, I would always watch the dentist and I'm like, I actually like what they're doing. I
Yeah.
just didn't know if I had the ability to do it, right? But I was just asking, hey, what do I have to do to be you? So that's kind of how my path forged into dentistry itself. And after that program, I did move to the States and sign up an undergrad because that was the next step. And I was like, okay, while I'm an undergrad, let me just shadow and just kind of see hands-on what's out there. And I just started loving it more and more and really recognizing that it's really a people profession. And that is something that really spoke to me on so many levels. It had the component of art, which I loved. And I know this is such a right. People always say, as dentists, you have to work with your hand. And I mean, like, I loved it. I genuinely loved creating things. And So I would say dentistry was almost like an amalgamation between everything I enjoyed doing. I enjoyed
Mhm.
working with people. I enjoyed creating things. I enjoyed solving problems and just really teaching people, right? Again, the teaching aspect came into place. The behavioral therapy itself really stemmed from my son. My son got diagnosed here in the US, and what went on in my head was like, what are we doing in dentistry to help people with special needs? So I wanted to learn the skills to basically have in the future to provide treatment for special needs patients. That's kind of how my behavioral therapy license came into place. But yeah, I just really wanted to have the both of both worlds and just see how can I be an asset to the community. So yeah.
Well, I think you chose an excellent profession for that because it really is a mold of the engineering, the art,
Yes,
the social work, the education, all of it into one because you're doing that with every single patient every single day.
absolutely.
So
Awesome.
I think you picked excellently, if I
Yeah,
can say that. All right.
thanks.
Well, let's kind of jump in. We'll kind of go in a little bit more about your life as we're talking about Midwestern in particular and how it works for you and your family. Because I think there's a lot of students out there. They may not have kids, but they may have kids while they're in dental school. I
Yeah,
know I had my first son while we were in dental school, but everyone's kind of at a different stage, whether they're single, married, engaged,
yeah.
boyfriend, girlfriend, all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about Midwestern. Where is it located for those that don't know? And is it a pass fail school? A little bit about the curriculum that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are actually two Midwestern schools that we have. One is in Chicago, CDMI, and one is in Arizona that I'm located in, CDMA. So here in Arizona, we are near Phoenix. It's not in Phoenix specifically, but in the Glendale area. So we're a little bit off Phoenix, but really close by. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're located. And so why I picked Midwestern itself, there were so many reasons really. When I was looking for dental schools, I knew that I wanted to find a program that would equip me with the know-how to be confident once I graduate. This was something that was super important for me, that we get really strong clinical experience. Because I know every program has its perks, right?
Mhm.
And when I found out about Midwestern, I really recognized it was like almost the best of all worlds in for me personally. I looked at the things that I was passionate about, which was service, which was technological advancement. I wanted to be at a school that invests into their students, that invests into their school. And then lastly, like mentorships. That's something that I wouldn't be here sitting in front of you without incredible mentors. Something that I failed to mention to you earlier. So when I was pregnant, I was actually homeless, and I had wonderful volunteers pouring into my life and encouraging me and really sharing that the situation I was going through wasn't defining me, and that is something I live by today. So the idea of mentorship was huge. And so what I really did, I reached out to students at the school and just was like, "Hey, what is your school about?" Right? And the things that they shared with me, I haven't heard at other schools. We get to place implants. We do all the procedures. Because there's no residency programs. We have specialists, but we are getting to do the procedures itself, which was huge for me. My apologies.
No
We get to
worries.
do procedures itself, which was huge. And like I said, just the ability to advance ourselves, so pouring into ourselves. We get laser certified. We do molar extractions. Like I said, the implants, all these things really pouring into the students. So once they graduate, they feel confident doing these things. So that was a huge point for me. And lastly, really the mission about Midwestern. Midwestern is all about One Health. That's kind of what I was striving for. That whenever you see a person going through this program, they're looking at each and every person holistically. And that was something that was important for me, not just from the student's perspective, but also from the patient. The patient is not the diagnosis, right? Like we always say, the oral cavity is connected to the entire body. So I wanted to be part of a program that really valued that, valued their patients, valued their students, and wanted to give back to the next generation of dentists. So it almost like had everything for me that I was seeking in a program. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. It was a
Oh,
little
no,
long.
you went above and beyond on that answer. That's great. So, in going back to the mentorship a little bit, what did you do? Because sometimes students don't really know how to go about seeking out that mentorship, especially as a pre-dental student. It's awkward.
Yeah.
And we'll get to this a little further on, but how did you go about seeking that mentorship, and what were some of the questions that you asked
Yeah.
to get the answers that you were looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. So that I really think mentorship is oftentimes how do you say it, kind of underrated.
Mhm.
Um I always like to say it takes a village. It is a journey. Everybody has some sort of mentorship, right, in their life and they're on their way. And yes, it is true. It takes humility to ask for help. But what I personally did, it sounds maybe a little silly. I went on Instagram and I looked what resources are out there, what students are out there, right? Because if you think about this, the students were in your position as a pre-dental student. We were there. I was there a little bit over a year ago, right? So they're more than happy to help. So really, just shooting someone an DM or taking advantage of resources such as the Dental School Guide. There are organizations out there that really want to help you. So really, just recognizing that you're not on your own and taking advantage of things that are out there. I personally wish I would have learned about Dental School Guide when I was a pre-dental student because I think it would have given me hope. At times, it can seem as daunting or kind of like you're in a helpless situation because you don't know, do I have what it takes to be there, right? But we've all been there. We all carry our little package, and I think leaning onto other people is huge. It's super important. Really finding those resources, just shooting someone at the end saying, "Hey, that's me. I'm applying." So really taking that step, that's something that I would highly encourage. And this is, I think, the biggest advice that I would even give my past self.
Yeah, I love that. I think it is super underrated,
Yes,
having the confidence to reach out to someone you don't know and just being like, "Hey, I need some help. I need some advice." And like you said, most of the time, people are more than happy to just help. I mean,
absolutely.
we're all getting into this profession for a reason. We want
Yeah,
to help other people, and that's totally part of it. I love that. All
yeah,
right. Well, about Midwestern in particular. So you've just gotten through your first year. What
yeah.
was that first year like curriculum wise? What did some of the classes look like in terms of structure? How much were you in lab in preclinical lab?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually our first week, we actually started off with sim right away. So that was something that I didn't anticipate because from what I heard from my friends, it takes a couple weeks until you go into the sim clinic. At Midwestern, they want to get you in right away. So that was something that was huge. I mean, I did not really anticipate that. But yeah, it's very much like of a structure. So Mondays we're all day in sim from the beginning of the year till the end. And then we have like classes, we basically call them basic sciences or oral health classes. So the health classes are more our dental classes. We take preventative, we take all all the dental classes that we need to take basically. And then our basic sciences is almost like our biomed that we're taking, right? The entire body. One week we're covering metabolism, the other week we're covering the heart. Like it's really yeah, so it kind of in a way does go hand in hand, but in the same way not, if that makes sense. It's we have specific days for specific tests. So if I would really think about this entire year, in the beginning I was just thinking, what is going on, like how am I supposed to survive this, right? People tell you it's like drinking out of a fire hose, and I didn't really understand this analogy until I started dental school, to be honest with you.
Right.
But, yeah, it just felt like a lot, but you will find a group. I think that's the biggest thing. Trust the process, right? It seems like a lot because I mean, I didn't do a master's. I went right from undergrad. I took a gap year and then went to dental school. I didn't really learn how to have that much information poured at me. Kind of what you do in a semester in undergrad, you're doing within a week. So that was a huge adjustment. But there's so many resources out there, like at our school, to really support you. Tutors from the upper years that are given to you if you feel like you're struggling, right? Or, I mean, I leaned onto my classmates as well. Like we formed little study groups and really just like quizzed each other. And I would say the biggest thing was finding a groove. That is for sure something that just took me some time. But I still had time for my family, and it's really what you make out of it, right? Um, I promised myself, for example, on the weekends that I would dedicate some time for my son and for my partner. Like this is something that was like a non-negotiable for me. And part of me thinks it is important for your mental health, right? To make these almost like these little declarations for yourself to make sure you take care of your mental health. So, like I said, finding that groove was a little bit tricky. But I got there, right?
Mhm.
I cherished my breaks even more, but, yeah, I mean, that's kind of how the first year goes. It's like really a balance between your basic sciences, which are really heavy, and then your, dental classes itself, and Monday, sim, sim, sim. I mean, I can share a little bit also with you what we did in sim, but, if you're interested, but that's kind of just how our structure was.
Yeah. So I mean, we can kind of dive into that a little bit here in just a moment. You touched on something that I really liked though, of being able to have support for each other, whether it's in a study group, whether it's upperclassmen that have taken the classes before, say, hey, how did you study this like section on the heart or whatever, if you're going through anatomy or whatever the case, or how do you prep this class too? A lot of schools have kind of gone, especially with the push with mental health in recent years,
Mhm.
to having either therapists or counselors there available for students that, because it's a grind. I mean, you're taking 30 credits a semester. Like you
No.
said, it's drinking from a fire hydrant. What, in terms of support for students, what does the school provide you guys
Yeah.
with on that level?
Yeah. So there's multiple different things that we do have. So there is we have student services that basically they know when our heavy weeks are and they plan like free lunches, like little events to like massages, therapy dogs, like a lot of just like little events on campus to really help us decompress, right? During finals week, free food. Who says no to free food, right?
Yeah.
So that was always super huge. And I never understood that until I started dental school. Just even time for meal prepping was not a thing, right? Like I just
Awesome.
grabbed whatever I could during that week. But so support from student services is there. We have also counseling on campus that is available to all the students, which is huge. Just having someone to reach out to, right? Even if it's not within your class itself, or if you feel like you don't have anyone at home or anything, there is student counseling itself, and it's super anonymous. Like you can go in and just have a chat with someone, right? There's always, no matter where you go on campus, there's always an open ear. And that's another thing that was huge to me. I didn't recognize that prior, how important it is to have someone hear you out. Because you're going through so much, that sometimes you just want to just hang out and just be like, hey, can I just share what's going on right now? And some people they just want to decompress on their own, and that's okay too, right? But that is huge. And then we have this whole idea about the big and little program. So we get paired, student council actually does that with the class above us. So it helped me tremendously. My big every now and then would just have like a little Starbucks card on my bench and be like,
Oh, wow.
"Hey, I know you have a lot going on right now. Grab yourself a coffee." Or just little piece of advice that you would give me. So, the people that are signing up for these programs, it's not part of our school itself, but it's just because they've been through it, they're like, "Hey, I wanna help the next one who are coming in." Just so they kind of know what to expect. So I would say between these 3 things, having the upperclassmen as support, having the school, and having decompressing events in a way, was really, really helpful. Um, for me personally, I just wanted to know that if I needed support, that support was there, and that's something that I personally found at Midwestern.
I love that. That is so great. All right. Well,
Yeah.
back to the sim. I know we kind of derailed there for a moment, and now we're coming back to the sim. So,
Yeah.
in sim, every school is kind of treats it a little bit differently. What are some of the things that you guys, in terms of preps, in terms of
Yeah.
crowns, if you did some
Yeah.
removable during your first year, what does the second year
Mm,
look like? But also, one thing that I do want to ask, because this is something that I always wish I knew when I went to dental school,
okay.
is like I got to dental school, I went to VCU, and it's a great school. But then when we're going through our orientation, they're like, okay, now if you use past the 5 teeth that we supply you for this practice, you have to go down to the Henry Schein store and buy more teeth. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, what is this? So, but not all schools do that. Some schools provide all the burrs and you can have as many teeth
Yeah.
as we want. How does Midwestern handle that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, like we all know, like our school is expensive, right? Tuition, and I feel like no matter where you go, tuition is super expensive.
Yeah.
That's something I am so grateful for because I practice a lot, and yeah, we don't pay for anything. We don't pay for bursts. There is a machine where you can get extra teeth, but I've never had like I don't know anyone who used it to be honest with you. So the dispensary, if you're asking for teeth, you're getting teeth. Like they're super accommodating with that because they want you to practice. We
Mhm.
also don't have really a time that we have to be out of sim. So you could come on I could come on the weekend and just finish my projects then. So that is super huge. They want to make sure that you're balancing your time, but you get to choose how you want to come in and practice on your own. So if you're like what some people do at the end of the day, they come in, they grab some teeth, and then just come back on the weekend and do their little projects. But yeah, no, we absolutely don't pay. I think that's, and you're not the first one that I've heard that to pay for teeth. I would probably be very poor
Yeah.
because
Why
I
was
need to practice. So I'm like, I don't know how people do that. Um, yeah, so in that sense, we get that from the school basically. In terms of procedures, so we've done so far. We start with waxing to really go into the anatomy. Did class ones, class fives, two, threes. I'm trying to think what I'm missing. We did a crown prep at the end. Yeah, I mean these were like the bigger things we did. We did photography.
so for that
Mounted.
photography class, I hate to interrupt you there. What'd you
Yeah.
guys do for photography? Because
Intro.
that's you kind of unique. That's not
Oh,
in every school, which is kind of cool.
okay. Yeah, yeah, no, so they're really trying for us to do a lot of stuff like manually, right? But then also incorporate digital dentistry as well within it because that's really where the future is going. So for example, if I do a prep, right, or restoration, I get to actually also scan it with our CAD cams that we have accessible to all of us. And also scan it in and just see what is the difference, right? What is it that I measure versus what's CAD-CAM showing me? And then with photography, it's just really we're learning about contrast. We're learning about how do things look like within intraoral, and that has been huge for me. Just really playing with light and making sure that it is part of patient education, right? So that is something that I felt super grateful for that we got exposed to that, and that they're really like trying to get us used to what can you do to make that a better enriching experience for your patient for your future outcome whenever you deliver a bridge, a crown, whatever it is. Like it is a huge tool to use and part of dentistry itself, right? So that's something I really really enjoyed doing, the photography aspect, kind of just playing with the different nuances of that. I was never really familiar with that. I usually use my iPhone, but we actually had cameras there and just recognize the differences with that. So it was really cool. Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, the photography thing that will come in handy the rest of your career. I take pictures in my practice all the time.
yeah,
So yeah, use and abuse the people in your school that are all about photography because there will be a couple that will be really into it, and so that it's a good skill
yeah,
to learn.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
well, let's kind of shift to more like some fun things about school, like the
Hey,
in terms of outside school extracurricular things.
mhm.
Um, what is there in the area where you're at that is kind of fun that a lot of students enjoy doing in their free time? I know we're all busy when you're in
Yeah.
school, going to school, it feels like you're drowning, but everyone still has weekends, everyone still has breaks. What is there to do for fun in your area?
Yeah, so and it's obviously like everybody's different. I have a family, so you will probably find me at the trampoline park or at a playground with my son or swim. But a lot of students, they go out on the weekend to Scottsdale. This is where a lot of people go to have a good time, or to downtown Phoenix. But there's also something recently. I mean, I have never heard about it before. It's called pickleball.
Oh, I love pickleball.
A lot
Pickleball
of
is
people
way
are really
fun.
into. So, yeah, there's a bunch of people are doing that lately. That's what I've seen. Even within intramurals, to you build it your own team and then play against one another. But just really, I mean, we're in Arizona. If I'm telling you right now, it's 110 degrees. So, the pool. And you're staying AC and just do a lot of like also indoor stuff. But yeah, it gets hot. So, Yeah.
That's
So I
fair.
would say, like, cooling activities, like water, like, there's a lot of lakes that people go to, so canoeing, paddle boarding, yeah. So, that's what a lot of people even hike. So that's something I'm not the biggest hiker, but it's a beautiful scenery out here. So if you're into hiking, you probably wanna go and, yeah, check out this area.
That is really cool. Now, housing situation wise,
Yeah.
everyone's housing situation from school area, like where all the dental schools are, varies greatly in terms of cost, in terms of kind of where the majority of students live. Some places they almost call them like, little Creighton or whatever, if like you're going to Creighton. Is there a place where majority of the Midwestern students typically live? And what does rent typically look like for your average, like two bedroom, two
Yeah.
bath?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we do offer on-campus housing, and that is like super affordable in comparison to like living like close to the school. I'm sure like wherever you go it's the same, but if you live around the school nearby, so walking distance, it's just more. So I would say you probably pay for like a one bedroom, like almost 2,000, I would say, but I live like a 10-minute drive away, live in a town of 3 bedroom, and I pay 2,000, so it's like really what are you looking for, right? Like, I live in a little neighborhood where there's, like, elderly people, and very quiet, but it's only takes me 10 minutes to drive, so if you wanna live right by the school but not on campus, it's just really hard to get the on-campus housing, so oftentimes people say, "Hey, you apply for the on-campus housing, you might not get it the first year, but maybe usually you go in the second year and you have it. You're on a wait list basically." So, that's kind of how it looks like here. But yeah, on-campus housing is just amazing because it's so affordable. It's like a fraction. I think it's like a third maybe.
Wow.
So super affordable.
Wow, that
Yeah.
is great. There wasn't a whole lot of on-campus housing where we were, and I had a family too, so we lived a
Yeah.
little bit further out, which didn't quite make sense to have live in the downtown. But in terms of parking, does your school do free
Yes.
parking, or do they charge students for parking?
Mm-mm. No free parking, and we have also
Excellent.
parking garage because it does get hot. So, a lot of students choose to park in the parking garage, and something that is super neat, I think, I'm not sure how it is at other schools, but the security, like, let's say you have a flat tire, right? You can call security and they can help you with that. Or, for example, as a female, you don't feel safe walking, we're in a super safe area, so not that this is really an issue, but if you for some reason feel like you're not safe to walk to your car, you can call security from wherever you are on campus and they take you to your car, which I think is also incredible. So just that sense was that's also something I was looking for. I wanted to make sure wherever I go, there is support in every area and I don't have to wonder, okay, can I go at night? Can I stay in the library till 10 and walk to my car? This is not really an issue at all.
Oh, that is
Yeah.
awesome. That is so great. So let's go back to the school just for a moment. There were a couple questions that I wanted to ask you that I totally had forgotten about. But
Yeah.
in terms of the clinical years, now I know you're not quite there just yet, but in terms of clinic, every
Mhm.
school kind of structures their clinical experience differently. Do you guys have like practice groups that you're put into? And then how often are you guys in clinic? So you kind of went into like the different procedures you guys get to do, which is an excellent procedure mix for a dental school. But what does the clinical years look like when you're at Midwestern?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way things are kind of divided is we have the first 2 years that are super didactic heavy, and then the last 2 years that are you're in clinic. You're gonna go across the street, like we say, it's like almost like two physical locations. So the first 2 years, the way we get exposure, from my year that I had so far, we go over for our hygiene rotation. So we actually got to do on one another hygiene but then also shadow a hygienist and really get to see how is hygiene incorporated within our school. I'm going to go more into that in a minute just to explain kind of how our structure is within the clinic. The second
Yes.
years, they actually do hygiene on the patients and have the hygienist right there to actually get that hands-on experience. And then, they go basically through the rotations within each specialty and just really learn, okay, how is the application based off of that? And then 3rd and 4th years is super exciting. So, our school kind of models the philosophy of, like, having that mentorship, having 3rd and 4th years paired with one another. So which I thought was really neat. So you always basically have an assistant for every single procedure. I thought that was really awesome. So we have we call it suites. So our school is all about getting you ready for private practice in the future. So you have a hygienist present that does your hygiene basically.
Wow.
Um, and you always have an assistant because you're a D3, D4 pair. And you basically rotate the procedures itself. Yeah, that's kind of how D3 and D4 year looks like. And you do all the procedures. There is no one who's going to take the procedure away from you. If your patient needs an implant, you will do the implant on the patient, right? So that was so neat to me that we actually get to do every single thing that we encounter. Um, so yeah, that's kind of how it's run. And the way we have support is also something that I thought was a little different. In our first year, within the sim, our ratio is between 4 to 5 students with one faculty member. So they're trying to keep it really small so you constantly are able to get feedback. And it's the same thing within the clinic. So we have something called a CCC. It's almost like the owner of the practice in a way of the suite, and then you have CCFs who almost like are supporting dentists who go around and really like do checkoffs and really support the students within each little operatory. But it's really like kind of simulating a private practice model. That you have a hygienist, that you have someone checking you up, like really making sure, hey, on what step are you in? And just having an assistant, the idea of full-handed dentistry, um, I didn't recognize how huge that was until I looked into Midwestern and I talked to other people from other dental schools. So yeah, that's a little bit about our like clinic, and I'm obviously not there yet, but just from what I hear from my friends and future colleagues.
That is awesome. Yeah, that
Yeah,
is quite unique that you're able to pair up with a student and then kind of do all the procedures and just kind of work together as a pair.
yeah,
That's not a common thing amongst different schools, which is really neat. So for
yeah.
those fourth year students, a lot of schools will do external rotations where they'll let the fourth year students, often they'll let some third years, depending on the school, go out into the community, either at like a community clinic or something of that nature to perform procedures there. Do you get that experience at Midwestern and where are some of those places at?
Yes. So, the people who are planning on specializing, for example, right, because we don't have any residency seats cells, they basically do that throughout their 3rd year. You will often see people go to externships, and your 4th year dental students, they basically go to rotations. We have specific rotation sites around the valley. And that's what they do. One of them is in a Native American reservation out here, which is I heard such a great opportunity for people. And then there is a free clinic in downtown Phoenix. It's really just like beautiful to get to see different types of models and be incorporated into that. So I think it allows also the students to see different sides of dentistry and see how it is in the real world, right? But yeah, that's our 4th year school in rotation.
Wow, that is awesome. All
Yeah.
right. Well, we are going to totally change gears here.
Okay.
We will be done talking about like your experience, but let's talk about the interview process. We're going to have you reflect back a year plus ago, almost 2 years now, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Crazy.
Walk us through. We're going to kind of go through some advice that you would have if you were to interview again. Okay. And you can share your experiences at interviewing at Midwestern or any other schools that you interviewed at, and we can kind of compare and contrast interview styles. But what was your experience like as you were waiting to get interview invites before you got those invites?
So before I got those invites, I mean, the application itself, once I submitted my application, or you're asking,
Yeah,
um,
so for
yeah.
example, this is kind of where a lot of students are approaching now as students are starting to submit their application, and then we'll get the question, when do I get an interview invite? When is that coming?
Okay.
And that's kind of like that weird, awkward transition period where you're sitting and waiting for potentially months
Yeah.
before you hear back.
Yeah.
And so, what was your kind of experience like during that transition period where you were waiting?
Yeah. So, this was actually my second time applying. I basically learned what not to do, right? Is also a way. The first time I applied, I only applied to 2 schools, because I wanted to stay within my state, and we had the 2 schools present in North Carolina. Um, and yeah, I mean, I applied very late. I never recognized how important, and I know people always say that, but how important it is to apply early. I really had no idea. The second time I applied and I got into Midwestern was basically I applied the day that it opened up. And that made a huge, huge difference, I think. I heard back pretty early. I had my first interview in August. So I was waiting a couple months, but I would say what I did in that time frame was really, it is hard to stay cool because you're anticipating that, right? You're
Mhm.
checking your email, you're like, okay, when is it happening? You're looking all these Facebook groups, you're like, okay, like, has anybody heard back yet? But what I would say I tried to think about things that made me different in a way. I don't know, like, I would really not really that you're trying to compare yourself to other people, but why you? I was really trying to reflect and think about my journey and think about what made me me as a person. I know everybody has kind of a different take, but I wanted to know once I got an interview that I've thought about these types of things, right? That I've put in the work to really think, who am I as a person? And that's funny, like you know yourself, but when somebody sits in front of you and asks you, "Oh, tell me about your life." Then you're really trying to think, okay, what is it that this person actually is wanting to know, right? So really just jotting down some things that I think made my journey the way my journey went and how I got here and just really how do they call it? Like an elevator speech. If you're stuck with someone in an elevator, what would you tell that person to get the job, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of what I did. I really used that time to reflect and, also kind of distracted myself with just hanging out with friends and just try to trust the process again, but I know it's super hard. But, just reached out to people and, the places I applied to, I really tried to talk to the students that were at these schools to really try to see how is their interview process like? How can I improve? How can I almost not sell myself, but how can I be at my best once I'm there, right? And show them who I am as a person. You only have a day, right? To show them who you are as a person, which is not a lot. Um, so that's something I try to do during that time frame.
I love that. That is awesome advice. So when you got that invite
Mhm.
to go interview, let's
Yeah.
talk about Midwestern first. What was that experience like? How do they structure their interview?
Yeah, so I was very different than any of my other interviews. Um, it really came to show that they were trying to figure out who am I as a person from the beginning. I got there, and we were in this little I would say lecture hall in this little meeting room, right? You had the screen and one of the admissions people, and I thought I was early. I got there 15 minutes early, and guess what? Everybody was already there. So I'm like, great, Miriam, great. But I
You're the
got
last
there,
one here. Great.
yeah, I'm the last one here, and I'm 15 minutes early, so, but it was fine, the guy was joking, but he remembered me, because I was just trying to be like, "Okay, let's just pull a joke," right? Like, in French, we say "la crème de la crème," like the cream comes at the end, right?
Mhm.
But, I got there and basically we kind of just talked about okay, what is Midwestern about? Kind of, just, the structure, the philosophy, kind of just really get a scope on things, which most people already know because they applied there, but I think they just wanna cover their bases to make sure financial aid, what does Midwestern encompass, like, just give you really a framework, and after that, it wasn't too long that we did that. It was just really, like, short and sweet and just really making sure, like, "Hey, where are you guys from? What are your guys' experience?" Like, it was in a way, it's part of the interview, obviously, right? People always think the interview itself is just when you sit there with the admissions people, but they wanna see how do you react when somebody pulls a joke on you, right? Like, all this, like, all these interpersonal skills. So, they just basically asked us, like, "Oh, yeah, where are you from?" Each one of us was from a different state. I also thought that was very interesting. Um, so we just kind of talked about our state, where we are from, and then some people were on the military scholarship, some not. Um, so just I'm kind of almost getting to know each other as well in a way. But that is also part of the interview, like, unofficially, but it really is, right? After that, they took us on a with a little golf cart and showed us like the campus and just really the facilities itself. And the person that gave us the tour is actually they're part of admissions, but they're almost like a tour guide, right? They're not selling themselves like, oh, I'm part of admissions or anything, but they're also having a say in like, hey, this is the experience I had with that person. So yeah, they're basically just giving you a tour from the amenities and everything. We did that, then went across the street to the clinic, got to see the clinic, meet the corresponding personnel. So everywhere we went, we met the people that were almost like in charge or had like a important role, I guess. Once we were in the clinic, we met the clinical assistant dean and the dean of the school itself, and they each gave us like their little talk and wanted to hear from us, like, hey, what made you guys look into our program, and do you guys have any questions? And something I did actually ask, um how was your what is the exposure to special needs patients? Because that is something that I was like curious in as a special needs mom. And I remember a couple people looked at me like I was crazy, like, you really asking this? But they're there for questions. And I think sometimes like knowing who you are and knowing what you want from a program is as important as them asking you questions, right? Like, as
Right.
much as they're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. So going in with that type of mindset. And basically we saw the clinic, had lunch, and got to actually speak to the students. They were third years at the time. And that was supposed to be not like anything to do with admissions itself. We could literally ask them anything. Um, so we just asked that question that we had, hey, how much support is there at the school? Um, and yeah, we asked basically anything that we had on our mind, and then it came in the afternoon to the actual interview itself. So that's basically you have two faculty members in front of you and one student. And they basically just ask you questions. And something that was very, very different, it wasn't anything about your application. They don't have your application in front of you or anything. They just really ask you about your values as a person, which
Okay.
really I did not anticipate. Um, like your experiences in the world, like, hey, you have a tell me about a customer service experience and why did that stand out to you, right? And that's something that I just didn't anticipate at all.
Okay.
So, every question that I was being asked is really trying to see there was no right or wrong answer, and they're telling you that. It is really just to see how do you think, how do you how do you care for people, and what kind of person are you? So that is really what the interview was about. Um, yeah. So that was basically the whole day. This is the last thing that happens. I was the last person, so I stayed till the end. But yeah, that was it basically.
That is cool. So they didn't ask you any ethical questions. They didn't ask you, hey, hypothetical scenario, you're a dentist, you come across this,
Yeah,
nothing like
no,
that. Only about
nothing
you.
at all.
That is the
No,
best kind of interviewing there is.
yeah, no. And I think I was just able to be myself. When people
Mhm.
ask me why that why that interview stood out to me so much, I really picked Midwestern based on my interview. It was like that was a huge selling point for me. It's just because I recognized that first of all, students really wanted to be there. Um, I was just looking around myself and people genuinely seemed happy to be there, genuinely wanted to ask faculty when we were in clinic and they were giving us a tour. I was looking around and the engagements between students and faculty was huge. It was very laid back. Very people were very comfortable with one another, and it wasn't an environment, a culture where you're scared to approach your faculty member. Um, so like I said, the interview itself, them wanting to get to know you as a person, them caring about how you think was huge to me. I was like, this is somewhere where I need to be. And I didn't have that at other schools, so I think that was something that conveyed me.
I think you hit something really on the head there, Miriam, in the fact that when you're on those interviews, paying attention to the happiness of the students and the culture of the students and the faculty. Because a lot of times you're going to notice, like everywhere you go, there's going to be gripes. Students are going to be unhappy about certain situations that they're in. That's just part of it. But are they handling it with class? Are they happy? for the most part, that's a huge factor because that affects and rubs off on every single student, every single faculty member. So
Absolutely.
that is a key piece of advice, everyone out there listening, that to pay attention to how everyone is responding to that. So
And
awesome
maybe that,
hearing.
yeah.
Oh, go for it. Sorry, I cut you off.
Well, that was it just made me think about maybe that's also a question for you guys to ask. I mean, it's something that I was curious about, and I think I asked at every single program. How do you guys handle conflict between students and faculty? That's something that I really wanted to know. Like, is there an open door policy? Like, just to give you an example, our dean, I was just volunteering this past weekend. She was there volunteering on her own,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Which was for me incredible. I didn't anticipate that, but she also has always an open door policy. So I've throughout this first year, I've really been able to gotten to know the faculty itself because they all have an open door. If I need feedback on my prep before school starts, I go in at 7:30 before they huddle up, and I ask them, "Hey, can you look at this real quick?" Or if I have something that I really want to talk to the dean about improvements, or just hey, something that I'm not really happy about, or something that happened on campus, she always has her doors open for you, for the students, and that is something that spoke volumes for me personally, that she really makes the time for her student, and it's not like, hey, I don't have time for you right now, right? You always feel heard, and that's something, again, was important for me. So yeah, just it made me think about that just right now. But yeah.
That is awesome. Okay, well, we're getting kind of close to wrapping this up here,
Yeah.
but for final question,
Mhm.
any final piece of advice that you have for someone interviewing or applying this cycle that you were like, hey, this is something I really wish I knew when I was applying?
Yeah. So I think the biggest piece of advice that I have, obviously trust the process, but also lean onto people, ask for help, reach out, because there are people out there that they've been in your shoes. So really feel free to reach out to people. And I know so many that love to mentor others. So that is something, a huge token of advice. You may think that people are so busy, and we all are busy, right? But everybody knows where you are at this particular point in time. So to really reach out to people, lean onto them, and you have what it takes. Believe in yourself. I know it's hard because you're looking around yourself, but focus on you. Focus on you've made it to this point, right? You've gotten that interview. So yeah, first of all, congrats, but lean on to us. We're all here for you guys.
That is awesome, Miriam. Well, you have
Oh,
been a fantastic interviewee. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, and we will talk to you next time.
absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Well,
Thank you, Dr.
great. We were so glad to have you on the show. All right. Well, that is it for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast, and we will catch y'all later.
That's all for today's episode of the Dental School Guide podcast. We hope you've gained valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey into dentistry. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more expert advice, inside tips, and engaging discussions. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. It would mean the world to us. Until next time, keep smiling, keep striving, and remember, your dental dreams are closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in to the Dental School Guide podcast.